Hello, my crafty friends. Well, today I have some very easy window card ideas that I want to share with you. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, I have two different card ideas I want to share with you, which feature this window card concept. So basically, we are going to be using a die to create a little window in the front of our card. And one of the cards, this one, happens to be a fun fold card that is very easy to put together. And then this one is a standard card where I just used a window design on the front of the card. But both of these cards are very easy to make. Now, the cards in this video feature the Charming Duck Pond bundle from Stampin' Up. So this particular bundle has a stamp set and a coordinating die set. And this is the fun little die that we are going to be using to create the window on both of these cards. Okay, so we are going to start with this very simple card idea, and this is just a standard card. So it's basically 5.5 by 4.25 inches when closed. So that's the card front. And I just created a fun little element here using the dies from the Charming Duck Pond bundle just to create a little window on the designer paper. So this is very simple. I just let the designer paper do all the work, and then I just added this little element. So I'm going to just give you some tips on how to cut your designer paper so that these ducks are kind of in the center here instead of off to the side. So basically, I am using a piece of the Lily Pond Lane Designer Series paper. So this particular paper pack coordinates with the Charming Duck Pond bundle. And I want to be able to cut this paper so that it fits on that entire card front. So I want to cut it down to 5.5 by 4.25 inches. So it just covers the whole card front. So I kind of played around with this design, and there's a little tip that I want to share with you. So first we are going to cut off a 1/2 inch from this side, from the left side of the paper. So just cut off that little 1/2 inch piece. And then we're going to cut off a 1/2 inch from the top because I didn't want the ducks to be too far up on my card front. So it's just a 1/2 inch off the side, 1/2 inch off the top. So once you cut that 1/2 inch off the side, you end up with a 5.5 inch piece because your original designer paper piece was 6 by 6. So just by cutting off a 1/2 inch, you end up with 5.5. So now that I have the 5.5 inch here, I'm simply going to turn this, line it up at 4.25 inches, and I'm going to make the cut across the bottom. So now I have the ducks pretty much centered on my designer paper, and we're ready to make the card. So the next thing I'm going to do is just take this piece of designer paper that we cut, and I'm just going to adhere it to a white card base. So I like to use liquid glue because then I can kind of scoot this around and make sure that it covers the entire front of the card. All right, so now we are ready to create our little window for the ducks. So I just cut a 4 by 4.25 inch piece of Pretty Peacock cardstock. And then I'm using this particular die from the Charming Duck Pond bundle. And this actually creates a little window in the cardstock. So I have the cardstock on the standard platform. I'm just going to place this other plate over the top and run this through. All right, now that we ran this through the embossing machine, what you will notice is that this die cuts out the center of the cardstock. And it leaves this really cute little border just right into the cardstock. So I thought that was just really neat. So this piece we can just toss, and then we can go ahead and put our card together. All right, so I just added a bunch of Stampin' Dimensionals to the back of this because I want this to be popped up over the top of these cute little ducks. So we're just gonna line this up and push this down. So you get just a really fun little background just using the designer paper. It's very simple, and it's just a very pretty card. Okay, so for the second card idea, I actually decided to create a fun fold card. So I cut the window piece right into the card front. So I made my window right in the card front itself. And then I added the designer paper underneath. So this is where the fun fold section just kind of comes into play. So I added this piece of designer paper so that when the card is closed, you can see the cute little duck images through the window, but the actual fun fold section is on the inside of the card. And then there's enough little space in here that you can write a greeting or stamp a message. So let me show you how to create this one. So to create this card, I actually started with a 4 1/4 by 11 inch piece of Pretty Peacock cardstock. And then I just scored it in the center at 5 1/2 inches. So I'm basically creating a top folding card, which is a little different from the card designs that I typically share with you. And so what I did is I took that die, so this fun little die from the set, and I opened up my card and I just laid this on the card front and I sent it through my embossing machine the same way I just showed you for creating the other card, except for this one I did right in the card front itself. So the next thing we have to do is cut our designer paper. So we want to cut it so that the ducks are going to show up on the inside of this cute little circle. Okay, for this particular card, we are going to cut a 3 1/2 inch wide piece of this designer paper. So it's 6 by 6. So the first thing I want to do is just move my ducks over just a little bit. So I'm going to cut a 1/2 inch off again. So we'll cut a 1/2 inch off from this side. And so after we cut the 1/2 inch off from here, I'm just going to line this up at the 3 1/2 inch mark, and we are going to make the cut. So we basically have a 3 1/2 inch wide piece, and it's 6 inches long. And now what I want to do is create the little fun fold section. So I'm actually going to line up this part, the top part, on the 1 1/2 inch mark. And I'm going to score this. So we'll just make a score line there. And then we will be adhering this piece, this folded section here is going to get adhered to the inside of the card to create the fun fold. All right, so now that we have our designer paper cut and scored, we are ready to adhere it to the inside of the card. So what I did is I just kind of folded this over and just took a look at where my little ducks were going to end up. And so I am going to adhere it kind of in the center on the inside of the card. So we're going to add some glue to this little flap here. And we will pop this up closer to the top. And then when we close our window, then we have our little ducks down here, and we still have some of the fun other elements that are on the designer paper. So the next thing I did is I just cut a 3 1/2 by 4 1/4 inch piece of white cardstock. So I'm going to adhere this piece on the inside here, and we'll just kind of cover this up a little bit, that little flap that we created. So we'll adhere this. Then you have a nice little spot for writing a message, stamping something, however you want to decorate the card. All right, so that's the basic concept for creating this little fun fold section with your designer paper. And so here's what the finished card looks like. I just added a little bit of designer paper on the bottom and a greeting. And then when you open it up, you have a little bit more designer paper. You end up with a lot of little 1/2 inch scraps. So I recommend using those little 1/2 inch scraps, just cutting them up and using them on the inside of the card to decorate it. Okay, so there you go. Now you have 2 different ways that you can use this window card idea in your card making. And if you enjoyed these card ideas, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the cards shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.